Hey everybody, today is February 13th, so we're looking at February 12th MTG stocks. As we can see, nothing too big on the daily increase. This is a fairly big increase. I mean, when you compare it percent-wise, not big, but $5 is still pretty good. I'll be looking at that one. And then we'll be looking at a couple of price increases here. This was from I guess 2 days ago, and it's about the same price, but a couple of other things have been kind of rising in general, so it'll be interesting to look at. So let's go ahead and go into our first card here. Our first card is Embercleave. Embercleave went from $20 to $24.99. This is from the Throne of Eldraine set that came out not too long ago now. Because Theros came out, and now Throne of Eldraine was like October, so about 5-something months ago. It's kind of interesting because usually, as time goes, usually these cards will decrease, but this one has seemed to get a lot of popularity. So, anyways, what Embercleave does, if you are not aware, is cost 4 colorless, red. It is a legendary artifact equipment. And so, kind of interesting because, not a lot of artifacts have color pips in them, so interesting to see that. But other interesting thing is that it has flash, which is another kind of like weird thing. I don't know how many equipments have flash in it. The other things that it does, because I mean that'd be pretty awful if the only thing it did was flash, is it costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. So if you had 4 creatures attacking, that means Embercleave would basically cost just 2 red. And then the other things that it has is the actual probably equipment stuff here. When Embercleave enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. So, pretty good. You don't have to pay the equip cost. And then equipped creature gets +1/+1, double strike, and trample. I think this is where it, probably why it does so well. And the equip cost is 3, by the way. So, let's kind of break down all these things because there's quite a few things to look at. So, first off, 6 mana is quite a bit. And I think because of the 1 less to cast for each creature you control, each attacking creature you control. The reason why this does well is because in aggro decks, you probably will be able to get out 2 or 3 creatures, and by that time, when you are attacking with 2 or 3 creatures, you can suddenly, flash this out because it has flash, but then it also gets to equip to something as when it comes to the battlefield. So it's basically just like, it's a huge buff. It could cost 2 mana pretty easily, I'd say, maybe 3. And then giving something +1/+1 double strike and trample. So the good things about this is that if you're attacking, someone blocks your creature. Let's say if your creature has 2 attack, the blocker has 3 health. Put out Embercleave, has double strike, will kill off their 3/3, and then you also get to trample through, so you get to do some damage to the player as well. If you have like maybe a 4 attack guy, and let's just say they don't want to block, so they don't block, and now you have a 5/5 double strike, which is pretty crazy. There's a lot of good things about Embercleave, and it's still pretty surprising to me that it's worth this much. It must be doing pretty well, and I don't know about Standard or Pioneer, but it's maybe doing well in those formats. Because I mean, it's just, the fact that you can potentially play this on turn 3, depending on how aggro your deck is, which if you're building this, you're probably trying to go aggro to some degree. I think there's a lot of potential in it, and I guess the price kind of shows that. For Commander and stuff, I feel like this could be, I don't know if it's riskier. You probably won't attack with like 4 creatures in Commander super often, even if your deck is based around it, just because it's leaving yourself open a little bit too much, I feel. But regardless, 6 mana in Commander is not a huge price. At least more casual Commander, I should state. But yeah, I think it fits in a lot of formats. It would just depend on how slow or fast that format is, or how much control, or whatever. There's a lot of factors, but whatever. I do like the card, and I am surprised. And I wish it wasn't so much, just because it is a neat card. But some cards have to do well per set, or else that this, I guess, Magic would sort of fail and to some degree, and I don't know enough about economics to discuss that, so I'm going to move on to the next card here. Next card is Vizier of the Tumbling Sands. This went from 86 cents to 220. It's from the Almond Kit set. So Vizier of the Tumbling Sands is a 2-colorless blue, is a 1/3 human cleric, and you can tap it to untap a target permanent, or you can cycle it for 1 colorless and a blue, and cycling is where you discard it and then you get to draw a card, so it allows you just kind of like, it's kind of like a cantrip a little bit. And then when you cycle Vizier of Tumbling Sands, untap target permanent. So here's kind of the big thing about this card. So, I mean, its regular ability is kind of whatever. You're not going to be really playing this creature I should say, in the sense of, as a creature, you're going to be cycling this creature to get its effect. More than likely. And this kind of spiked up in price from what I've seen. It's because of kind of like a new deck in Pioneer. Pioneer facilitates a lot of price increases, I feel, nowadays. But this this spike seemed to be from something called there we go. It's called Breach Lotus. Breach Lotus. I think that's it. So what Breach Lotus is basically, there is a card called Underworld Breach, which we've discussed before. Underworld Breach is a pretty crazy card. It costs 1 colorless and 1 red. And what it allows you to do is give all your cards in your graveyard the new mechanic Escape. Basically, this card allows you to cast a card from your graveyard for its cost, but then you have to exile 3 other cards in your graveyard. That's more or less what the enchantment does and lets you do. So when we look at something like Vizier of Tumbling Sands, what you can do is, so if you have Underworld Breach on the field, you can then cycle Vizier. This allows you to discard this card and then draw a card. And then it allows you to untap target permanent. And so when you think about it, all it really does is, because since Underworld Breach doesn't allow you to bring it back to your hand, this has to discard this card and draw a card. I'm pretty sure cycling doesn't work that way. I could be wrong. If I am, let me know. But it sounds more like a way to discard a card, and this allows you to be an enabler for your other cards to have Underworld Breach. So since you have to exile 3 cards, you can use the cycling when you discard this card. Then you can use these as one of the 3 cards you're trying to exile. And then the other thing that's big in this kind of like combo is when you cycle this, untap target permanent. So the other thing that this kind of like helps is Lotus Field, and Lotus Field came out in M20. And basically, Lotus Field is a land that allows you to tap for 3 mana of any one color. It now, of course, has a downside where you have to sacrifice 2 other lands when it comes into play. But when we look at with something like Vizier, it's a huge, huge mana ramp kind of deal. So, you know, you have Vizier out, or you have Lotus Field out first, probably. And then you have Vizier here. So you would cycle Vizier. He gets discarded. When you discard him, you untap target permanent. Now you can untap your Lotus Field. And now you have 1 extra card in your graveyard to allow your Underworld Breach to do more, allowing you to escape more, and etc, etc, etc. So this is kind of like what the whole deck is based around, this kind of idea. But it's kind of interesting how, like, you see this card, you're like, oh, okay, it's whatever. I mean, honestly, I think the cycling and untapping a permanent when you cycle is still pretty decent. There are other decks that can use this pretty well, I'd say, especially commanders that have like a huge tap ability. This is commander talk, not so much Pioneer, but yeah, so interesting card. It's interesting to see like how something like this is kind of gets like a spike of popularity in a deck, and then it kind of just rises up. Neat stuff. So let's go and go to our 3rd card here. It says Gideon of the Trials. Gideon of the Trials went from $5 to $10. and he is also from Amonkhet. So let's go ahead and read what Gideon does. Gideon of the Trials costs 1 colorless, white, and he has a loyalty of 3. He's a Planeswalker, and his +1 ability here is until end of turn, prevent all damage, target permanent would deal. So, someone puts out Lord of Extinction. Sure, Lord of Extinction. He's a big boy, or can be a big boy, and so when you have a 40/40 coming at you, it's pretty scary. But with Gideon, it allows you to prevent that, which can be good. Or it's probably better for like enchantments that maybe ping you or something. That could be a decent other chance or things like that. Let's see, his 0 ability is until end of turn, Gideon of the Trials becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible that's still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. So this is always kind of like a weird thing with Gideon. It seems like he always has an ability to turn him into a creature that's indestructible or something close to that, it feels. But it's not bad, I guess. It basically until end of turn. So you can only do it on your turn, so you can't really make him a blocker. But I guess the benefit would be is that if you just need to be able to hit somebody, then you have that option. I mean, I don't think this ability is used too much, but I could be very wrong. And then its last ability here, which is also another 0 cost, so he has no minus abilities. You get an emblem with, as long as you control a Gideon Planeswalker, you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So it's kind of another interesting thing, because usually these kind of effects are on like enchantments or creatures, etc. But getting an emblem that says you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. And of course, the stipulation has to be at Gideon's on there, but I believe this works for any Gideon's Planeswalker, as it seems to read here. And so if you have Gideon the Trials out, you get the emblem. Then next turn, let's say if somebody kills it, as long as you have any other Gideon in your deck, then you are still invincible. So kind of interesting. I can see why it could be good, because having kind of like any you can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game is neat. Because the other thing about those enchantments that usually keep you alive through weird circumstances, they usually are more of health based. So it's like you can't go to 0 health, or you can't take damage to 0 or something. But this one actually prevents people from winning or losing, or prevents people from winning and you losing, I should say. So it's kind of a global effect that I think could be really powerful, and so it's probably why it's increased. It's also, I believe in the past week, this has been in a few like decks that have been in tournaments, so it's gotten popular in that for Pioneer as well. Pioneer, like I said, huge way to increase prices. So let's go ahead and go to our 4th card here. This is Hell's Caretaker. Hell's Caretaker went from $24.99 to $22.49, and this is from the Legends set specifically on this price. So Hell's Caretaker is a 3 colorless black creature horror. I do like how in the old cards they just like, whatever. They didn't really like do a good job of keeping creature types more condensed, and so they're like, summon Hell's Caretaker. So there's like, you figure at that point in time it'd just be like a legendary creature, but I guess not. I don't know how they did it in the past. But in this, it says, tap, sacrifice a creature, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate this ability only during your upkeep. So basically it's a 4 mana, cheat out any creature from your graveyard. It's not bad. For $22, I would not buy it. But as you can see over here, there's like Chronicles, and they have newer versions like Masters 25 where they're like $1.50, which is more reasonable. This card is okay. Having the stipulation where you have to use it during your upkeep always hurts, because that means you can't just, if someone does something to target it, you can't like do it in response or anything like that. But I mean, it's still I think pretty decent, because I mean, so it's 4 mana, but you can cheat out anything. So if you had like a Colossus Blight Still, whatever it's called, really big Infect Boy, and then you cheat him out through this. I mean, that's pretty spooky. I mean, a lot of people will be spooked. I'll be spooked. So, yeah, you know, that's why he's a horror creature now, because horrifying, huh? But, yeah, it's still not great. I mean, you know, you probably rather have something like Reanimate, which is like it costs 1 black, and then you can return any creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, but you lose life equal to its converted mana cost or its power, one of the two, or something like that. So, you know, it's okay. In a creature-based deck, it may not be bad, but it's okay. It's okay. But I like any kind of graveyard deck, so I'm going to bias, and I like it probably a little bit more than I should. But let's go ahead and go to our commander of the night, which is Josu Vess Lich Knight. So Josu Vess Lich Knight is a 2 colorless black legendary creature zombie knight. He has a kicker cost of 5 colorless and black, and so what kicker is that you can pay an additional 5 colorless and black as you cast a spell. So if you would like to pay and get its kicker cost, you would have to pay 6 plus 4. You have to pay 10 mana in total to get Josu Vess's main thing off. And so the other things that he does is that he has Menace, and the big thing that he does is that if you kick him, you create 8 2/2 black zombie knight creature tokens with Menace. And Menace is an ability where the opponent has to block with 2 creatures to actually block this creature. And then Josu Vess is a 4/5. So I like this card because in what you kind of want to do with a deck, if this is your commander, is you want to try and get as much kind of mana ramp that you can. Dark Ritual is like a good way to get a lot of mana at one time. And so so if you can cast Josu Vess at least once with his kicker cost, so that gets you a pretty huge board state, or someone's going to probably counter it, let's be real. But it allows you to really make that Dark Ritual come handy, because the Dark Ritual will allow you to basically cast him 2 turns earlier than you can, and there will be a bunch of other cards that you can use, and that's kind of what you want to do when you have this guy. You want to try and get as much mana ramp in mono black, which is, you know, kind of weird, but as much as you can. He'd probably be better as a 1 of 99, like a token deck, or I guess you can go kicker tribal if you really wanted to, or something. But I like the idea of him and making like a zombie token deck instead of kind of a zombie reanimation deck instead. And to kind of show a random card of the night, I'm going to show a card that would be pretty useful for this. And this is called Cryptghast. Cryptghast is a 3 colorless black. It's a 2/2 creature spirit. And it has Extort, which we'll get to in a second. And then its main ability here is whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black. So if you had 5 swamps and you had Cryptghast out, you would gain 10 black mana, which is pretty crazy. That's with Cryptghast and Josu Vess, you're able to get him out much quicker and get a kicker cost off more reliably, and etc. etc. So the other thing I want to talk about though real quick is this Extort ability, because when we look at it, it's kind of scary because we have this little black-white symbol. So Extort, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay black or white. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So Extort's a nice ability in general. So if you were to cast just whatever, it doesn't matter. You cast a spell, creature, instant, sorcery, whatever, you can then pay basically 1 black. And if you do, and you have 3 opponents, they all lose 1 life, and you gain 3 life. Pretty useful. But when you see this white and black, and in Commander, you can't have colors in your deck that are outside your Commander's colors. The only thing is that you can have this card in Josu Vess only because this Extort ability is in the reminder text. And so abilities that are in this reminder text, which is, so basically this text right here, since it's in there, it doesn't actually count towards that card's color towards commanders. So that's why you're allowed to have this, because everything else here, as we can see, there's black here, then there's no white anywhere else in this creature. So that's why we're able to use something like Cryptghast. So it's just kind of like, if you didn't know, it's kind of like a little bit of useful information, but that's probably, I don't know how well known or not that is. Anyways, let's go ahead and end off the night here with a couple of random cards as always. Random card number 1 here is Glistener Elf. Glistener Elf is a 1 green creature elf warrior. It's a 1/1 and it has Infect. Infect. I don't like that Infect, but that's what got me out of Magic originally was Infect. But I think as time goes on, I'm slightly not, I don't know if warming up to it is the correct word. I'm just more tolerable of it, I would say. But I mean, I wouldn't say this was a bad card to put in an elf deck because this kind of creates a win condition for you when you think about it. Because usually in elf decks, you're going to have some way to buff them, or you'll want to have some way to buff them. Because having a bunch of 1/1s attacking isn't going to do you a lot. So you're going to want to make them get like +3/+3 from something, or Crater Hoof Behemoth is a big one that people can use. But Glistener Elf is basically, if this gets through and it has 10 damage, kill somebody. So it's a slight alternate win condition. It's not like an amazing alternate win condition, but it's not a bad alternate win condition, I should say. So not bad, not a bad elf. Let's go ahead and go to our second random card of the night, which is Volcanic Dragon. Volcanic Dragon is a 4 colorless, red, 4/4 creature dragon. This is a flying and haste creature. So it flies, it goes fast. Nothing much. Let's see. Speed and fire are always a deadly combination. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Though I would say 6 mana for a 4/4 isn't too amazing. I'm not super impressed by it. But yeah, whatever. We'll take it. It's a dragon, I guess. There's a palm tree. I like the palm tree. I always like the Mirage artwork there. I assume it's a palm tree. If it's not, then, well, I don't know. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.